Are your kitchen and bathroom way overdue for a remodel? Well, I got the guy for you. Call John Sellers at First Response Contracting, 484-256-7136. Both residential and commercial services, and he's licensed and insured. Call him at 484-256-7136. First Response Contracting.
From real estate to real life and everything in between, The Brad Wiseman Show. And now, your host, Brad Wiseman.
All right, we are back. I cannot get used to that guy's voice. He just has an amazing voice. He really does. It's incredible. I have an amazing special guest right here with me today. And this guy has been doing podcasts for a very long time. He now, what caught my mind or caught my attention was he's now over 500 podcasts. And you might know him. He's from Berks County. His name is Justin Schenk. Justin, how are you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great. This is amazing. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's just great to have you here.
But we mentioned before we hit record, you're at 100-something episodes.
150. 157.
That's a huge win. Huge win.
And tell me the statistic that I couldn't believe.
Yeah, so I think it's 78% of podcasts don't make it past their first 7 episodes. And so when I reached 500, I was like, well, how many people do that? And it's like less than 4%.
Less than 4%.
Yeah.
It's amazing, right? And I think what it is people see it sometimes and go, oh, I could do that, right?
Yes.
I can do this. This is just a podcast. What's the big deal? But no, I appreciate you for being here. You have been all over. You have interviewed 500 people, and I've looked at a lot of the people that you've interviewed, and these are not these are big players in the motivational, entrepreneurial business owners, CEOs. I mean, restaurant owners. I mean, the guy was just on recently was Fabio, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he was incredible.
So he's an amazing person. He was on that show Top Chef, which was a huge show, and he's been on like Beat Bobby Flay and all these things. And it's funny, I went to an event in Ohio where he was speaking. Yeah. And I literally said, who cares about a chef? Like, I had no idea who he was. I don't watch reality TV, but now I've had...
Should we cut that part out when he listens to this? Or
no, he knows. He knows. He knows this story.
Just making sure. I didn't want to, get any... I know he's a friend of yours.
Yeah, he spoke at my event in 2019, and I introduced him this way. And I was like, who cares about a chef? Yeah. And he spoke, and I turned to my friend who Zach Bouguet.
Yes.
Who was there with me. And I turned to him, and I go, dude, I need to be friends with that guy.
Yeah.
And now, a year and a half later, he came on the show. We've become friends over the last couple of years, and just a really good guy.
Yeah, you're doing some incredible stuff. I've listened to a bunch of things this morning, and I've listened to stuff over the years. So you've been doing this for how long?
So coming up on 8 years. So early next year, it'll be 8 years, which is unbelievable. Yeah. And it's so funny. I've had a ton of accolades, like over 3 million downloads and all these really cool things. But for me,
3 million downloads.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
It's wild. That's
a lot of people.
Yeah. And so like we get played in 100 countries every single week, which really blows my mind. But for me, the big accolade is the fact that I showed up consistently for 8 years.
Yeah.
Good
for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're glad you did.
Yeah, thank you.
We're glad you did. Because you're here's the thing, you're offering content, information and things that maybe somebody wouldn't get if you weren't doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's a gazillion podcasts out there. Ed Milet, who I love and has been on your show. He says, it's funny how when podcasting first started out, when he first got into it, there were 6 million podcasters out there. Okay. Different podcasts. He said now there's 60 million podcasts. So when he first started getting into it, he was like, oh, I don't know if I want to get into this. There's already 6 million. Now there's 60 million.
Yeah.
So it just shows you're showing up but people look to you for certain content.
Yeah.
And a certain conversation. And maybe not everybody gets the same conversation from me. They get it different from you. There's no new ideas.
Yeah.
It's about how you put it out there.
There are no new ideas, right?
No new ideas.
Most self-help books are regurgitated, reworded.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a statistic in the world that at any given time, there are 75,000 people that need to hear your message specifically from you.
Isn't that something?
And so I think that also keeps kind of the drive going, right? Because it's a lot of work. And
it
you
is.
know that.
Absolutely.
But that keeps the drive going of like, I have to keep showing up. I remember early on in the game, not many people were listening to the show, 35, 45 downloads an episode. Yeah. And I was like, what am I doing? And I think I was around episode 40 something. And I was like, why do I keep doing this? Is a lot of work. I mean, I love the conversation, but what am I doing? And somebody from Japan reached out to me and said, because of your show, I decided not to take my life.
Whoa. I just got chills. Got chills.
And so from that moment on, I was like, I'll show up even if one person's listening.
Yeah.
And hence the consistency of showing up every week. Now, I starting last year, and I'm doing it again this year, I take off December, partially for my sanity.
Yeah.
But I also saw some statistical wins when I did it last year. So I was like, okay, I'll do it again and see what happens. But I've been pretty consistent for the 8 years. Every Tuesday, I'll release an episode.
You know, and sometimes when you take off, people will hunger for it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? They get hungry for it. Whereas if you do it so consistently all the time, Hugo's like, yeah, when are we having off? But if you do it consistently all the time, what ends up happening is there's no hunger for it anymore.
Correct.
Yeah. So
yeah, and here's the thing, right? Every single week an episode drops. Somebody gets an alert.
And what day did you say it is? So we can
every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday. Is there a certain time that it drops?
So it used to be 3 a.m. I just shifted to 5 a.m. because I was reading some statistics about how that's the time.
Oh, write that down.
Wait, what is this show called, though? What is your podcast? Yeah, I know, because I've been wondering all this time.
No, we're not going to tell you. It's going to be a secret for everybody. Yes.
Secret. Yeah. Check the show notes. But no, it's called the Growth Now Movement.
Yeah.
And so we talk about growth, but we talk about all areas of life.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, I mean, I have such a scope of guests. And so my job is, like you, right, to filter it into growth in some way, shape, or form. Like I've had Bert Kreischer, who's a comedian, has multiple Netflix specials.
Yeah.
He's been on, and I think the same week I interviewed Ed Milet and a guy named Andy Frisella, and a couple weeks after that I interviewed Ricky Williams, who's a Pro Bowl running back.
Yep.
And so how do I filter this into an audience that might not A, know who these people are, or B, like really care about their message?
Yeah. Are you looking for the story, right? There's a story.
Yeah.
Everybody has a story. Right?
Everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And so many people hear certain different types of stories and they go, well, my story doesn't amount to that, or my story is not that horrific, or whatever. But the reality is people need to hear your message. I mean, I just mentioned that earlier, the statistic of that. And so it's really about showing up as consistently as possible for yourself and hopes that you can then turn that into something to make an impact.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that 100%. You can tell he's pretty good at it. Have you ever tried doing a podcast? Maybe
I was thinking
about maybe doing it. You can tell I'm lousy at it. I still didn't even tell the name of the podcast until halfway through. Yeah, I feel like an Oprah moment there, right? You know, just
it's like how do we hook them in? How do we hook them in?
Well, that's what I normally do. I don't tell people what you do. I just say introduce the person, and then later on they want the information. For
sure.
That's what it is. Yeah. So, what did you do before this? Did you do? You know, I don't think. Let me just get. I'm going to guess. You weren't in 11th grade going, I want to be a podcast star.
There
probably wasn't a podcast then, was there? Yeah,
they didn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dude, when I started podcasting 8 years ago, I would tell people I had a podcast, and we go, what's a podcast?
I remember those days.
Yeah. And actually, I had an aha moment about a year ago. I was sitting in a cigar lounge by myself. Mm-hmm. So I get a lot of work done there, a lot of thinking done there. And this older gentleman, probably in his 70s or 80s, sits down. And he goes, what do you do? Like out of nowhere. And I go, I have a podcast. And he goes, I love podcasts. And I go, oh my gosh. Like that was my moment of like podcast.
That's epiphany right there. Right?
Like,
wow.
Yeah. So, you know, you do that, like seeing that growth over time. Right.
Yeah.
But before this, I certainly was not in this type of work.
Yeah.
I didn't understand entrepreneurship. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't quite know how to do it. But my last job, I worked for the Chamber of Commerce.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
I remember
that.
About a year. Is that when you and Zach started doing something with the growth movement thing at that point?
No, this was before that. I was actually in medical sales for 5 years before that. Medical sales management, and was doing very well in that job. But we tried multiple different things. We did some live events, which
yes,
about.
I remember. I was at one of those.
Yeah. So they were
years ago.
They were great. I mean, I was a child.
I remember Craig Poole. Craig Poole had just started at the oh my God, it was Crown Plaza.
Yeah.
He had just started and he told his story.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah. So it was, we met Craig on his third day in Berks County and he's like, I want to help you guys. You look lost. Which we were, you know, we were lost.
He's a very honest guy.
Yes. But you know, it's been one step at a time since then. And we tried a couple other different things, Zach and I, and actually Zach was my co-host for the first year of the podcast.
I can't remember that.
And you know, some things popped up in his personal life and I was like, hey, do you mind if I do this on my own?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. And about a year and a half after he stepped back, Inc. magazine listed me as a top 8 podcast every entrepreneur should follow.
Awesome.
370,000 people read that article.
Wow.
Changed my life.
Yeah, it changes everything, right? Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's incredible. So that was Inc. Was it Inc. magazine or was it?
Yeah, it was Ink, well, it was on Ink.com.
Ink.com.
Yeah,
Okay,
I always
got
just
it.
say Ink Magazine
Yeah.
because then people think tattoos
I know what you mean.
and all that stuff. Yeah. The other,
So it's the INC ink, not the INK ink.
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So you don't have a sleeve or anything right?
No.
That we don't see.
I have
Just-
one small tattoo. That's
Oh,
all I
okay.
have. Yeah.
We probably don't want to know where it is. It's probably let's just keep that off the podcast.
We'll allow it to be somebody's imagination.
It's not that kind of show, okay? Just trying to tell you. We got out of real estate, we into weird stuff. That's what we did. But no, that's cool. So tell me, do you ever get nervous?
all the time.
You do?
So here's the thing, especially if I interview a big name.
Yeah.
I want to cancel it right before every single time.
Because you want to throw up.
Yeah, I'm just like, and I think a lot of it, right? We all have these limiting beliefs of like, who am
Absolutely.
I to have this
Little voice.
conversation? This is crazy.
Yep.
And so for me, I keep going back to that purpose of, showing up and making sure that I can change a life with this one conversation, or that one person who reached out and said, hey, because of you, I decided not to take my life, has happened about 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I just got to keep showing up.
Yep.
And it's been really, really fun. On the back end, the nerves go away and we have a great conversation. Once you hit record and you get into that conversation,
It all goes away.
It goes away.
Well, it's a conversation. It really becomes, and I tell that for guests that come in, if they seem a little anxiety or whatever, I tell them, look, once we start, we're just going to talk. It's just you and I talking. That's all it is. It's don't mind Hugo. He just sits in the corner over there and does his thing. He plays around with buttons that look fun. Yeah. But yeah, that's cool. So you do get a little nervous, and I do too. I get a little bit of anxiety just a tad before. But after that, it's all good. It's all good. So, I was just listening to, you had a Thanksgiving episode on not too long ago for Thanksgiving, and it was all about gratitude. And that word is used a lot right now. And I was just thinking, what does that mean to you?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of looking at your car covered in road salt and winter grime, or not quite getting the results you would like to see from the car wash? Well, I've got just the solution for you. The Detail Shop, your go-to destination for premium auto detailing.
I think gratitude for me is finding. I'm trying not to use the word gratitude.
Define gratitude without using the word gratitude.
This is like middle school. I think it is. It's finding joy even in moments when it's not going the way you want it to go. Because the reality is, life is always going to have its ups and downs, right? Yep. For instance, like for me, like a lot of the catalysts of what I do now. Growing up, I was a terrible student. I was never the kid who was going to go to college and get a career and do those things. My mom battled opioids for 20 years. My dad spent some time in jail. And so all signs pointed to you've got no shot. And 6 months before my mom, I launched the show, my mom passed away. She lost her battle to opioids.
Wow. Sorry
and
about that.
obviously it took some time, but I find gratitude in that moment now. Because looking back, if that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't be able to impact lives. And I honor her in every conversation that I have. Because, she struggled for a long time, but she was such a beautiful person. A great mom. Who loved me unconditionally, and her pain has now created so much happiness for other people. And I find joy in that. And so Ed Milet, who we talked about earlier,
You frame it that way.
yeah, exactly.
Am I right? You know what I'm saying? You're using that situation, and there's choices you can make at that moment. You can frame it to be bad, and I'm going to use that as my crutch all the time. It's always going to be part of my limiting belief, or I can frame it as something that's good and use it into my future to give me a better life. And that's what you did. You did the right things there. It's awesome.
Yeah, Ed. I think Ed was the first person to say it. Now everybody says it. But it's about realizing that life is happening for me and not to me.
Not to me.
To get out of that victim mindset, right? And I was for quite some time. I tell the story where I was blackout drunk 6 nights a week for 3 months after my mom passed away.
Wow.
Utilizing that victim mindset to hide, to run, to numb the pain, to do all those things. And so the reality was I had a choice. And I had to step back up and kind of define my rock bottom moment of like, this is my rock bottom moment. Doesn't mean bad things aren't going to happen again. But what it means is I'm going to find gratitude in those other moments that kind of knock me down. And rise out of that and create a platform out of it. I mean, COVID is even a great example of that. Like 85% of my income was speaking and doing my live event.
Gone.
The world shut down for 2 years. But what it did is it restructured my whole entire business where now I work less, I make more, I live a great life because of that moment.
Yeah, right. It's interesting, right? How things, how things force you to change. It does. Because what happened is you couldn't do the same things you did before. Guy was on a podcast. He wrote a book about 10 times in your life as opposed to 2 times in it, and getting more out of your life. And with something like that, your life was changed so much. It actually happened to a lot of us. This podcast right here is because of COVID.
Yeah,
it really is. I started April of 2020 because I was bored and I always wanted to have a podcast, and I thought, man, now's the time. This is it. This is my time to do this.
Yeah.
And now 3 years later, going on 4, I guess, here it is. But yeah, it's really cool. I love the whole gratitude thing. And I liked your podcast about that. It was very good. And how you explained it. It was really good. Thank you. So the one thing that I was like really blown away with, you met Andy Grammer.
I did. Yeah, I did.
God, that pisses me off.
It's kind of wild.
He is like he's one of my favorites.
He's one of my favorites. He's probably number 2 on my list. Michael Bublé is my favorite musical artist.
Dude. Yeah, same here.
Are you
Same
a whiskey
here.
drinker?
Oh yeah.
So he came out with a whiskey. Well, he came out with a whiskey.
Okay.
It's the first ever North American whiskey. It's called Fraser and Thompson. And
I did see that. I did see that. Is it
it's
really?
Incredible. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to start drinking more whiskey. I'm a
good.
vodka guy. I'm a Tito's guy.
Yeah, I can't do the vodka.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's right. That way you won't drink my shit.
There you go. Yeah. Come
Works
over
out
whenever
perfect.
you want.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know you won't drink my stuff. It's perfect.
So the Andy Grammer thing.
Yeah.
He's been number 1 on my list to interview for 5 years.
Yeah.
I've gotten close a couple of times. There have been some messages back and forth, and then sent to his team and trying to schedule it, and it just still has not happened.
It'll happen.
Yeah, it'll happen for sure.
Yep.
I got his tour manager's number while we were there at the show, and we've been texting back and forth trying to make something happen.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, I won those. Like, I bought tickets to the event. Lauren, my wife, bought us tickets to the event. She surprised me with them. But then I entered some drawing thing, and I won a meet and greet. And I was like, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a super nice guy.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah. Well, I think his music's just fun. Yeah. He's got you listen to his lyrics. It's like my kids love it. They can listen to it with me because it's there's nothing in the lyrics that are bad, all that stuff. But it's really fun stuff. So I told you about before the show. There's this new stuff. You said that you're kind of into this stuff too, nootropics.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, I found one called Magic Mind, and I just wanted to tell you about that. I want to tell the viewers about this a little bit. That I started drinking this stuff, and I'm not one of those into like the weird stuff, like what do you call that, gree or any of that kind of stuff. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
I got this stuff, and I was very skeptical, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try it. I have to be honest, it does not taste that great. So okay, just going to tell you. But you know what? It's like 2 shots. You just do boom, done, down. You drink it with your coffee, so it's not instead of coffee. It's with your coffee, and it's given me like more of an open mind, or like I've noticed myself being clearer when I'm thinking and stuff like that.
100%.
Yeah. So you said you've tried some of this.
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, I haven't tried that brand, which I'm going to, because I'm super interested in trying to be more focused in the time that I need to be focused.
Absolutely.
And so nootropics changes the game for me when it comes to going, okay, I really need to get a lot of work done today.
Yeah.
I'll take a nootropic in the morning, and I'll just hammer.
And
out
you've
work.
noticed it, right?
I actually took one before I came here.
There you go.
It's true. It's true.
It's
by
true.
the way.
This
It's
is
not
true.
just because.
This is not part of this. This is he took one. But no, it's amazing. And I don't know what's in a lot of this stuff. There's vitamin B12, vitamin B3, all that stuff. But there's also like this lion's mane, which I'm hearing a lot about. That's in these things. All I gotta do is tell you, I'm liking it. My wife was really upset with me this morning because I left my 1 bottle in Atlantic City because I had like 2 left, right? So I forgot to tell this story before, but I left the 1 bottle in the fridge in Atlantic City for a real estate convention. I come home and I'm realizing, oh my God, I forgot my 1 before my next shipment comes in, right? So this morning, my wife was really not happy with me because I drank her last one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So she wasn't happy, but I just want to let people
Hopefully
know.
she'll be your wife.
I think she still is. I'm pretty sure she still is.
good.
But if you go online, we're going to have something on the actual podcast. It'll be in Facebook and all that stuff. It'll tell you how to get the information, and also how there's a code in there for a discount, so you can get a discount just by using my name on there. So there you go.
Love it.
Yeah. I'm into
love
it.
nootropics. Yeah.
So do I. So the other thing I want to talk about, the giving without expectations. We talked about Fabio a little bit, and then did you tell me how you met him?
Yeah, we were just. I don't even know if I told you before we hit record or if this is in the recording, but he was speaking at an event.
Oh, you're speaking at an event?
Yeah, and actually, this is the actual meeting. I didn't meet him at the event. I interviewed a guy, and I didn't know this until after he was already booked on the show. So understand that this guy, PJ, who I'm about to talk about, I didn't interview him just to get to Fabio.
Okay.
So PJ comes on
Have
the
you
show.
ever done that in the past?
Of course, yeah.
Wow, it's like meeting a girl.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta be friends with this person. To
Was
go
that
meet
bad?
them.
Was that? Did I sound like a man, like a pig?
No, well, look, we know it was back in the day.
Back in the day, that's right.
We all
right.
do weird things.
Now I just steal my wife's nootropics. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I interviewed this guy, PJ, and as I was doing research before he came on the show, I realized that Fabio wrote the foreword to his book.
Oh, get out of here.
So this was the first time I ever asked for an introduction. So I interviewed PJ. It was a great conversation. And I go, hey, man, I never do this. I wasn't lying because I had never done
that's
it
cool. You
point.
got to be integrity.
Yeah. And
That's
I was
good.
like, I never do this, but I would love to interview Fabio. Do you think you could make an introduction? He goes, yeah, of course. He's my best friend. He'll do it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm like, all right, cool. So that's how I got introduced to him. But
Very
here's
cool.
the even cooler part. Fabio then introduced me to 40 or 50 people individually via email for them to be on my show.
Wow.
And he's super
that's
well connected, yeah.
that's cool though.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do that.
He did not.
No, that's cool. That's definitely helping people on the way up there. Also, I know he drops the F-bomb on your podcast too.
Well, yeah. But he's got an Italian accent, so
Yeah, it sounds cool. It does. It sounds really cool. We don't allow the F-bomb here. We allow the other stuff like shit.
So
things like that we can
he
say.
spoke at my event in 2019, and I was told by 3 people afterwards that he shouldn't have said that many F words. And I go, well, you didn't do your research before you came and saw him speak.
Ooh,
Because
good
it's,
one.
I mean, unless he's actually on like network television,
I agree.
that's just who he is.
It's exact, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
Did you ever see George Carlin? I mean, geez, George
yeah.
Carlin. I mean, it's part of his show, right?
it's true.
Hey, look at Ron White. He smokes a cigarette on stage or a cigar, and he's not allowed to.
That's right.
But he does because
does
it's
it
part
anyway.
of his thing.
Yep.
You know, so you got to. So where does life take you? Where are you going? I know you're married now. That was most recent for what I remember. It wasn't too long ago, a year ago, something like that.
April of last year, yeah.
April last year, okay, which is great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I've met your wife. She's awesome.
Yeah,
very nice.
She is way cooler than me.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to say that, but since you're on the show, she's not. I figured to put you more in the spotlight. But then the other things, like where are you going with this? Where's your vision? Like where do you see this?
You know, people ask me this question all the time.
Yeah.
I couldn't have told you that I was here, that I'd be here.
Yeah.
Having the conversations I have, having the businesses that I have, leading a mastermind of entrepreneurs who are way more talented than I am. I couldn't see myself doing any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I know that I'll continue to do more of this, whatever this is. Like my goal is to impact as many lives as I can.
Yeah.
But because I've positioned myself in such a way, opportunities appear often.
Yeah.
And if they fall in line with my values, I'll give them a try. And that will kind of lead me into the next realm, the next step, the next world. I will say this. I've done some live events for Growth Now for my podcast, based around it a couple times. Because of COVID, it left a real bad taste in my mouth.
Right.
But unfortunately,
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
And I noticed that when you were doing those shows, I remember just seeing you out or seeing even just on your podcast, just in life on a social media, I saw that it was a lot of work.
Dude, it's stressful.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten a lot smarter over the years.
Can you delegate more?
You can. I mean, in 2019, I was broke.
Yeah.
So I had to do literally everything myself.
Exactly.
Now I'm in a different place where certain things can be delegated. The stress can be lowered in certain ways. But at the end of the day, it's still you. You're still the face.
Absolutely.
You're still the one selling the tickets. You're still doing all that stuff. But the live event bug will always kind of be in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And so we'll know for sure in the next couple of months. But keep your eyes peeled.
So you might do something
maybe
again.
September of 2024. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
that gives us lots of time to talk about it.
Keep your eyes open and peeled. I don't know if it'll be in Reading this time, maybe closer to Philly, but that's just from the growth that I've had. But we'll see.
Oh, okay.
We'll see.
So who do you learn from?
Everybody. And I know that's such a cliche answer, but I literally learn from everybody. I do enjoy being the smartest person in the room. So to put an asterisk to this comment, I do enjoy it from time to time, but I try not to be.
Yeah.
And so I've been fortunate enough that I have this vehicle that I get to have the greatest mentors in the world.
Yeah, you do, man.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the conversation.
Actually, it's funny too. We as a public, I think that's why podcasts got so big.
Yeah,
we all have the ability to have mentors that we never had. I mean, when I think about how Ed Mylett and the people on his show have changed my life in the past year. Not changed my life, but changed my mindset, the way I think, the things that I care about, the things that I worry about. Mm-hmm. I never got into John Maxwell and I knew who he was, saw him live. I'm going to see him live again in January, but never really got to know him until Ed interviewed him. So that's the thing that's cool with the podcast is you're turning people on to people that they can get help from.
Yeah, 100%.
I just love that. And we didn't have that before. You had to read a book.
Yeah.
And not everybody had the time.
Yeah. Or I
can't read a book while I'm walking. Like when I do my walk in the morning, 2.5 mile walk in the morning, that's what I do. Podcast.
Yep.
You know, so I couldn't do that with a book. Well, I could. I'd run into shit, but but it's like, I now have the podcast to do. So go ahead. Sorry, I kind of just thought of something. I didn't want to interrupt your story.
And that's exactly what it is. Like selfishly for me, I have conversations I want to have that I feel like can move me forward, especially early on. I always say if you listen to the first 2 years of the podcast, every single one of those conversations were every single one of those questions were from me.
Right.
Like it was really like I was going to school.
Oh, interesting.
But now I'm super intentional with the people I surround myself with. I have 5 specific people in my life at any given time that help guide me and mentor me and help me make decisions into the next level. And I don't want to necessarily say they're coaches, although one of them is. Like I just very much say to myself, like, who has my back and my best interest in mind? And I make sure those people are there, and I bounce ideas off them and tell them the stuff I messed up, and
it's awesome.
You kind of roll with it from there.
That's very cool. Anything else you want to share?
I have a question.
Oh, no, sorry, no questions from you. No, go ahead.
Brad. Now, Justin, in whatever you're doing now in life, you mentioned before the show that you're about to turn 30, 40, and, you're starting to think about things, that bring meaning to your life. But I'm curious to know, what is, in whatever you end up doing, whatever that may be the case, what is the guiding principle that is at the very top, that in whatever you do, what is always the guiding principle that you have deemed unbreakable?
Sure. Yeah,
it's a good one.
It's a really good question. So my definition of success, I believe, as a guy who's involved with Keller Williams says all the time, which is I want to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. And I think he took it a step further and said for as long as I want.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing for me. I realized in my early grinds as an entrepreneur that I didn't want to be stressed out with work. I didn't want to be constantly working from bell to bell. I didn't want to be burning the candle on both ends. And so as opportunities present themselves to me, I ask 2 questions. 1, how much time will this take me on any given month? And the less, the better. And 2, will it be fun?
Yeah.
And if there's a lot of hours, or the answer is no to that second question, I don't do it. Part of that is like, hey, I'm now a married man and a stepdad to 2 kids. And I want to make sure my time's not taken away from them.
Yep.
And obviously anything within my values, right? Like, I'm a spiritual person. I believe doing good is a good thing. And so if it's evil, if I'm signing a contract with the devil, that's going to be a no for me. But
so
it's
like this kind of thing here?
Yeah, it's got to be fun for me and not take a ton of my time.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Really good stuff. And that's kind of how I run my stuff now too. That was the definition of wealth from, it's either from Mark King or from Gary Keller. I can't remember one, but they're both Keller Williams.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's what really, you're defining wealth, not rich.
Correct.
You know what I mean? There's 2 different definitions, and I think a lot of times people take the 2 and make them the same, and they're not. It's not. So it's good stuff, man. I really appreciate that. Great question, Hugo. Excellent question.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
So we're going to have you come back in again, because we're going to have to keep up on this different things and things going on here. And I appreciate you so much for coming on here, because I know you're a busy guy. I do like the fact that you're off in December, though, so it makes it easier.
By the way, I'm actually not that busy of a guy. That's the beauty of saying the first question is how much time does this take me?
We're going to just say he's busy.
Well, man, you're a dad. Just
absolutely.
Family stuff. Like tonight, I'm going to a recital and have to watch Lucy play the flute. Hold on, I get to watch Lucy play the flute.
That's right.
And it's going to be a beautiful Christmas concert.
That's the best stuff, dude. I came home from Atlantic City. I was out, late the night before, doing weaving and sewing and things like that. But then I had to be back into town to see Carson's concert, and it was one of those things like I had to get up early. And I got up real early to do that. I normally wouldn't do that, but I did, because you know what? He was so happy to see me there. My wife would have killed me too. But so thanks so much for being on the show.
Hey, man, thank you.
Yeah, what a great show. That's about it.
I love it, dude.
All right, thanks so much. There you go. Wow, Justin Shank was on the show. And you know what? Did you hear he actually interviewed Ed Milet? That is incredible. Amongst all the other people he's interviewed, 500 episodes. Go check him out. He is amazing. We're going to have all of his information on Facebook, on Instagram, all that stuff. Check him out. Listen to his shows. They're just amazing, I got to say. Every Thursday, 7 p.m. We'll see you. Are your kitchen and bathroom remodels a little overdue? Well, now's your chance to call First Response Contracting. John Sellers will take care of you. 484-256-7136. They do residential and commercial, and they're licensed and insured. Give them a call at 484-256-7136.